She had dreams, goals, a whole future ahead of her. But one rejection, one no, was all it took to turn her life into a living hell. And when her body was finally found, 44 days later, it was buried in concrete, hidden like trash. But she was never trash. She was somebody's daughter, somebody's sister. And this story? It's about what happens when black women aren't listened to, until it's too late. The true crime story that shocked Atlanta, and it's only just beginning. Tamika Jordan just wanted peace. At 24, she was finally starting to breathe again. A quiet, soft-spoken nursing student from Atlanta. Always the helper, the fixer, the shoulder to cry on. People described her as a light. Bright smile. Always polite. The kind of girl who'd bring soup to your door if you had the sniffles. After 2 years of couch surfing and crashing with friends, she'd finally signed a lease to her very own apartment. 1 bedroom. 3rd floor. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. And to Tamika, that meant everything. She was a senior at Emory, balancing night shifts at the hospital, long lectures, and clinical rotations. But she made time for people. FaceTimed her mom every night. Never missed church on Sundays. Her playlists were filled with gospel, lo-fi beats, and the occasional Beyoncé. She didn't go out much. Never really partied. Her peace was sacred. But peace doesn't sit right with some men. October 7, 2024, 9:42 p.m. Tamika was last seen on a grocery store security camera. Smiling. Wearing scrubs. Holding oat milk, frozen berries, and a pack of gum. She waved at the cashier. Said goodnight. Left the store. She never made it home. The next morning, Tamika's mom didn't get her usual good morning text. She called. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. By noon, she was panicking. By 3 p.m., she'd called campus security. By 5 p.m., she was on a flight to Atlanta. October 8, 2024, 8:13 p.m. Atlanta PD did a welfare check. Tamika's apartment door was locked. No signs of forced entry. Inside, the lights were still on. Her laptop was open on the couch. A Bible sat on the kitchen table, next to a half-eaten bowl of cereal. Her phone was missing. But her keys were on the counter. And her favorite hoodie, the one she always wore when she studied, was draped over her desk chair. She was just gone. Police labeled her a voluntary missing adult. No signs of struggle. No blood. No broken glass. But her mom knew better. Tamika wouldn't disappear. She was careful. Cautious. Always let someone know where she was going. And she just paid rent. By day 3, her face was plastered across every street light and telephone pole in the city. Flyers. Tweets. Hashtags. #Find Tamika. Her classmates held a candlelight vigil outside the hospital. Local news covered the story. But without leads, the case was cold before it even started. Then came the first twist. A week later, a woman named Brandy Caldwell came forward. She was scrolling Facebook and saw Tamika's missing photo. She froze. Because she knew that girl. Not as Tamika. But as Tammy, a regular at the women's shelter Brandy volunteered at once a month. Tammy had come in 4 times over the summer. Always looking nervous. Always carrying a large tote bag. Bruises on her arms. Shaky hands. She said she was just passing through, but Brandy remembered something else. She always looked over her shoulder. Like someone was following her. This wasn't the Tamika her mom described. Or her classmates. Or anyone who'd known her in the last year. But when police checked shelter records, there she was. Same face. Different name. What was she hiding? Detectives dug deeper. They found a burner phone. Hidden inside a shoebox in her closet. It wasn't logged into any apps. No contacts. No social. Just one number listed under a heart emoji. The phone had been used 2 hours after she disappeared. A single text. He found me. Then silence. Authorities pinged the number she'd texted. It traced back to a man named Deshaun Baker. 33 years old. Known to police. 2 priors for domestic assault. And, most chilling of all, he used to date Tamika. Her mom confirmed it. 2 years ago, Tamika had been in a relationship she didn't talk about much. Controlling. Toxic. Scary. The guy made her change her number. Stop seeing friends. One day, she just left. No goodbye. No explanation. Her mom had helped her move to a new city. Start fresh. Change her number. But now it looked like he found her anyway. October 17, 2024, 6:26 a.m. Police arrived at Deshawn's apartment. He wasn't home. His car was gone. But his phone? Still active. And pinging, just 2 miles from Tamika's apartment. That same morning, a jogger found something near Piedmont Park. A red hoodie. Familiar. Folded neatly on top of a Bible. Next to it, a Polaroid photo. Tamika. Eyes wide. Gagged. Hands bound with what looked like a phone charger. And in the corner of the photo, barely visible, was a hand holding her head up. Not her hand. Someone else's. The photo had no fingerprints. No metadata. It wasn't digital. It was old school. Intentional. The kind of thing someone wanted to be found. The message was clear. This wasn't just about rage. This was about control. Someone was playing a game. Deshawn was found 4 days later. Dead. An apparent suicide. He was found in an abandoned church outside Macon. A single bullet wound. Gun in hand. No suicide note. But inside his coat pocket? A Polaroid. Tamika again. Same gag. Same pose. But this time? Her eyes were closed. The media declared it a tragic ending. Police closed the case. Said it was a murder-suicide. Case solved. But Tamika's mom wasn't buying it. Because the Ms. report said Deshawn's time of death was October 10th. 3 full days before the photo was taken. Let that sink in. He couldn't have taken the photo. He was already dead. So who did? Who had Tamika now? And why frame Deshawn? But this story is just beginning. We uncover a chilling connection between Tamika's classmates and a secret that had been hiding in plain sight. Because the apartment above hers had a history. And the tenant wasn't who he claimed to be. Stay tuned. If you're new to True Crime series, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the real stories, the cases that demand to be heard and the voices that deserve justice. This is a case you won't want to miss. A new suspect. A disturbing pattern. And the chilling truth behind a neighbor who was always just a little too close. Tamika Jordan didn't want drama. She wanted peace. But sometimes, peace is the last thing you get when you say no. Enter Deshawn Reed. 28 years old. Lived 1 floor above Tamika. Unit 3B. To most, he seemed harmless. Polite. Always said hi in the hallway. Held the door. Made small talk. But if you looked a little closer, there was something off. Deshawn worked from home, freelance IT, whatever that meant. But he always seemed to be around. Laundry room. Gym. Mailbox. Everywhere Tamika went, there he was. At first, she thought it was coincidence. Then she didn't. One night in late September, he asked her out. She smiled, politely declined. Said she was focused on school. He laughed. Said she was playing hard to get. She laughed back, nervously. Tried to leave. That's when his smile dropped. You'll come around. He said it low. But just loud enough for her to hear. After that, things changed. He stopped smiling in the hallway. Stopped holding the door. But started showing up more. Late at night. Standing by the elevator. By the mailboxes. Once, he accidentally bumped into her at the grocery store, 20 minutes across town. Another time, her friend MIA noticed him sitting in his car when Tamika came home from class. Engine off. No lights. Just, watching. She tried to brush it off. Told herself she was overreacting. Told herself it was nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. October 2nd, 2024, 10:07 p.m. Tamika found a note on her door. Not inside her mailbox. Not slipped under the door. Taped to it. Big, angry handwriting. You'll regret this. She didn't tell the police. Didn't want to escalate things. Instead, she texted MIA. This man is getting bold. I'm starting to feel scared. That was 5 days before she disappeared. Now fast forward. Police are reviewing security footage from her building. Tamika walks in. Looks over her shoulder. Looks scared. At 9:58 p.m., she disappears into the stairwell. Camera doesn't cover the stairs. At 10:01 p.m., Deshawn Reed enters the building. No gym bag. No groceries. Just keys in hand. He heads up the stairs. Same stairwell. And then, nothing. No footage of him leaving. Until 3:14 a.m. He exits through the back door. Wearing different clothes. Carrying a duffel bag. That clip was buried in hours of security footage. Police didn't find it until after they declared the case closed. After Deshaun Baker, the ex-boyfriend, was found dead. After everyone thought the story was over. But this? This was a brand new lead. Detectives visit Deshaun Reed. He opens the door. Calm. Casual. Says he barely knew Tamika. Says she seemed sweet. Says he hasn't seen her in weeks. When asked where he was the night she vanished, he says he was out. No witnesses. No receipts. Just a calm shrug. Police ask if they can check his unit. He says sure. They find nothing. At first. Until one officer notices something strange. The hallway closet has a gap in the floorboards. Small. But enough to hide something. Inside? A burner phone. Same model as the one found in Tamika's closet. But this one's active. And on it, text messages. To an unknown number. One of them says, "She made me do it." Another, "I told her to stop. She wouldn't." The last one, timestamped October 8th at 1:17 a.m., the night Tamika vanished. It's done. Police ask who the messages were for. Deshaun says it's a friend. Won't give a name. Lawyer shows up. Interview ends. With this new evidence, detectives get a warrant. Dig deeper. Find disturbing footage on Deshaun's laptop. Hidden camera angles. One clearly shows the apartment hallway. Another? The laundry room. But the most chilling? A still image from inside Tamika's apartment. Police freeze. How did he get that angle? She lived alone. No roommates. No visitors. The photo shows her asleep. Peaceful. Completely unaware. That's when they realize something else. In the corner of the image, barely visible. A vent. Just above the bed. Too small for a person. But big enough to fit a camera. Maintenance records show Deshaun Reed submitted a repair request for leaking pipes in her unit. 2 weeks before she disappeared. He volunteered to let them access the plumbing through his ceiling. Guess whose apartment is directly above hers? Police bring in building management. Turns out, Deshaun used to date the landlord's daughter. Had keys to multiple units. Including hers. He'd been inside her apartment before. Without her knowing. Probably more than once. But here's where things get weirder. Remember the Polaroids? The ones found near the park, and in Deshaun Baker's coat pocket? Deshaun Reed doesn't own a Polaroid camera. No photo paper. No darkroom equipment. No fingerprints on the film. And forensics can't match his DNA to any part of the photos. In fact, the timestamp embedded in the photochemicals suggests something else. The photos were taken weeks before she went missing. So now police are asking, if Deshaun didn't take the photos, who did? They bring him in again. This time with evidence. He folds fast. Admits to stalking. Admits to planting the hidden camera. Admits he was obsessed. But he swears he didn't hurt her. Swears he hasn't seen her since October 2nd. Swears the last time he saw her alive, she was with someone else. Who? Detectives ask. He hesitates. Then says, a guy in a blue hoodie. Apartment 1C. I think his name's Marcus. Only problem? Apartment 1C has been vacant for months. No lease. No tenant. No electric usage. But when police search the unit, they find something behind the bathroom wall. A plastic tarp, duct tape, and a Bible. Open to Psalm 91. A verse about protection from evil. No blood. No body. But something isn't right. And just as they are about to leave, one officer finds a light switch. Behind the mirror. Flips it. The mirror opens. A crawl space. Just big enough for someone to slip through. It leads to a tunnel. Dark. Narrow. And at the end of it, a door. Steel. Rusted. Locked from the outside. They force it open. And what they find sends the lead detective into a cold sweat. Inside the room are drawings. Of Tamika. Dozens of them. Pinned to the walls. Some showing her smiling. Some not. And in the corner of the room? A phone. Tamika's. Still powered on. Battery at 3%. Open to the camera roll. The last video, timestamped October 10th, 3:17 a.m. Tamika. Crying. Whispering one word. Marcus. Then. Static. The police track the name Marcus to an underground network. And discover that Tamika's case may be part of something much bigger. Because the tunnel? It doesn't end at that door. It keeps going. And the next stop. Might be another victim. She reported it. Nothing happened. A warning ignored. A system that failed her. And a final message that now feels like a prophecy. Tamika Jordan knew something was wrong. And this time, she wasn't brushing it off. She'd already caught Deshaun Reed watching her. Already found the note, "You'll regret this." Already felt the chills every time she walked to her car. So she did what anyone would do. She reported it. October 4, 2024, 9:42 a.m. She walked into the 19th precinct. Calm. Collected. Told the officer she wanted to file a harassment report. She showed them the note. Told them about the stalking. The uninvited encounters. The cop skimmed the paper. Said, "Unless he puts hands on you, there's not much we can do." Let that sink in. A woman walks into a police station. Says she feels unsafe. And she's told to wait. Wait until it gets worse. Wait until he gets violent. Or until it's too late. Tamika wasn't the type to make a fuss. But even she looked stunned. "You can't even talk to him?" she asked. The officer shrugged. "We can make a note of it. But if he hasn't broken the law, our hands are tied." They handed her a pink carbon copy. A report number. That was it. No follow-up. No patrol car. No warning to Deshaun. Next stop, building management. Tamika emailed the leasing office. Said she felt threatened. That a neighbor was stalking her. She asked if there were cameras. If anything could be done. She got a reply 3 days later. One sentence. "We have no confirmed incidents of harassment. You may be overreacting." By now, she was terrified. She stopped going to the gym. Did laundry in the middle of the day. Changed her class schedule. She even started sleeping with a knife under her pillow. Her texts to friends grew shorter. More paranoid. One said, "He's in my head. I can't sleep." Another, "I feel like I'm being watched all the time." She started calling her family more. Especially her younger sister, Nia. Their last few calls were different. Nia said Tamika sounded exhausted. Distracted. Like she was listening for something in the background. On October 6th, just 4 days before she vanished, she said something that would haunt her family forever. "If anything happens to me, it's him." That voice recording now sits in the police evidence locker. Along with the pink report form. The note on her door. And a copy of the lease agreement that shows Deshaun Reed lived just 17 feet above her. But here's where the story gets stranger. Tamika's phone logs show a call placed at 2:18 a.m. the night before she disappeared. A 911 call. Only it never went through. The signal dropped. Investigators later discovered her router had been manually unplugged. No outage. No storm. Just unplugged. And here's the chilling part. The camera in the building hallway, the one pointed toward her door, went dark at the exact same time. One moment it's recording. Next, just static. 4:47 minutes. When it came back online, Tamika was gone. At first, police doubled down on Deshaun Reed. He had motive. He had access. And with the hidden camera footage found in his apartment, things looked clear-cut. Until they hit a wall. His alibi checked out. Turns out, Deshaun had been out of state from October 8th to October 11th. His credit card was used at a motel in Raleigh, North Carolina. Surveillance footage matched. He was there. Which means, he didn't take her. But if not him, then who? That's when police looked back at her call logs. Not the night of her disappearance, the day before. There was one number she called 3 times in a row. No name attached. Just a local area code. Trace led them to a prepaid phone. Registered under a fake name. But what pinged their radar? The phone had also received a call from another woman. 3 weeks earlier. A woman named Danielle Cruz. Danielle had lived in a different building. Same property management company. Similar complaint. She reported that someone was following her. That someone had been inside her apartment. She filed a report. Got brushed off too. And then, she vanished. Same MO. Same company. Same police brush-off. Detectives now believed they weren't dealing with an isolated case. They were chasing a pattern. Back at Tamika's building, investigators started checking for hidden access points. Crawl spaces. Vents. Unused rooms. That's when they returned to apartment 1C. The same unit Deshaun claimed a man named Marcus was living in. The one police found empty, except for a Bible and a tunnel. But they missed something. Under the sink. A loose tile. Behind it? A keyring. With 5 labeled keys. each one tagged with an apartment number. All units where women had filed harassment complaints, including Tamika's and Danielle's. Whoever had those keys had access to them all. DNA pulled from the keyring didn't match Deshawn, didn't match Tamika, didn't match any employees in the building, but it did match someone else. A former maintenance worker. Name, Andre Willoughby. Fired 6 months ago. For stealing. But Andre wasn't just a maintenance guy. He had prior arrests. Burglary. Peeping. One dismissed charge of unlawful surveillance. Nothing stuck. He always vanished before the courts could act. Police pull his last known address. It's a storage unit. On the edge of town. No power. No water. Just a rusted metal door and a padlock. They crack it open. Inside? A mattress. A small fridge. A wall covered in newspaper clippings. And on the table, dozens of Polaroids. Every single woman who'd filed a report. Tamika. Danielle. Others. Some photos show them smiling. Others? Not smiling. And tucked into a Bible on the nightstand. Another note. Handwritten. Same angry handwriting as the one left on Tamika's door. But this one says, she screamed. But nobody listened. Cops raced to track down Andre. His car's been spotted 2 states away. But then, another call comes in. From a different city. Another missing woman. Same story. Same photo left behind. And inside her vent? A small hidden camera. Which means this isn't over. Andre's not just hiding. He's hunting. Investigators uncover a chilling connection between the victims, one that leads them straight into a dark online network where women are being tracked, traded, and watched. In real time. And as for Tamika? Her phone pings again. But not from her city. From another state. And it's still moving. The haunting silence. A locked door. A missing girl, and the one detail no one saw coming. March 3, 2025. It wasn't like Tamika to skip class. She had dreams. Big ones. And nothing would stop her from chasing them. So when her professor called her mom, Angela Jordan, that morning, asking if she knew where Tamika was, it didn't make sense. Angela tried calling her daughter. Once. Twice. 3 times. Straight to voicemail. Her stomach twisted. Tamika always answered. She FaceTimed her every morning before class. Their routine. It had become as natural as breathing. This time? Nothing. Angela drove straight to Tamika's apartment. A quiet complex, tucked away in a forgotten part of town. It should have been a safe place. Tamika had loved it there, quiet, simple. Just how she liked it. Angela parked, her heart pounding in her chest. She rushed to the door, knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Louder this time. Still, no answer. The door was locked. The silence felt heavy. Angela's hand trembled as she checked the doorframe. There was no sign of forced entry. No broken locks. Everything seemed normal. But then, Angela noticed something. Just beside the door, near the floor, the camera wires were cut. Her blood ran cold. Tamika's apartment was equipped with a security system. Cameras in the hallway, pointing directly at the door. But now, nothing. The wires were sliced clean through. She pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. Not even a creak from inside. Angela's gut screamed something was wrong. She called the police. The officers arrived within minutes. But they didn't rush. They took their time, walking through the scene like they had all the time in the world. The officer knocked once more. Nothing. He tried the handle. The door clicked open. March 3, 2025, 10:28 a.m. Inside, everything looked untouched. Her textbooks were scattered on the couch. Her shoes were neatly placed by the door. A plate with half-eaten cereal sat on the kitchen counter. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until they checked the bathroom. There, on the bathroom mirror, a faint smudge. A fingerprint. But the most chilling thing of all? The smudge was wet. Like someone had touched it recently. Tamika was gone. There were no signs of struggle. No blood. No broken furniture. No evidence of a fight. It looked like she'd simply vanished. But then there was something else. A neighbor who had been walking their dog that morning heard something. Screaming. Loud. Desperate. The night before. But the neighbor hadn't called the police. Why? Because they thought it was just a domestic argument. It wasn't unusual for people to fight in the apartments. So they shrugged it off. They didn't think anything of it. The police checked the neighboring apartments. Nothing. Except for one thing. The security cameras outside her building? None of them had been working properly for days. March 3, 2025, 2:14 p.m. The police took Angela into a room to talk. "Your daughter's phone," the detective said. His tone was flat. "She hasn't used it." Angela stared at him, confused. He continued, "Her phone was traced to a location about a mile away from here, last night, at 2:43 a.m. That was the same night the neighbor heard the screaming. But the phone was still locked. No messages. No calls. Something wasn't adding up. No one had seen anything. And Tamika wasn't the type to leave. Her mom knew it. The police knew it. But her phone pinged again. This time, a different location. A parking lot, several miles away from her apartment. But when the cops checked it out, they found nothing. Just an empty lot. They kept digging. Tamika's friends and classmates were questioned. Everyone said the same thing. She had no reason to leave. Her life was finally getting better. She had a clear path. She was on track to graduate soon. So why? Why disappear? They checked Tamika's recent calls. The last call? March 2, 2025. A missed call from a blocked number. The same blocked number had been calling her for weeks. Who was it? And why didn't she ever answer? They traced the number, but it led to a dead end. It was a burner phone, registered to a false name. Nothing. Angela could feel her heart breaking. She tried to hold it together. Where was her daughter? What had happened to her? And why hadn't anyone seen anything? The police kept searching. They scoured every inch of the building. Every room. Finally, after hours of searching, they found something. In the utility closet, hidden behind old cleaning supplies, an old, dusty backpack. Inside the bag? A set of keys. The same keys from the maintenance worker's keyring that had been found in Andre Willoughby's storage unit. Keys that matched Tamika's apartment. And then, just as they thought they were close, they found something even stranger. A matchbook, with a logo from a bar across town. It was tucked deep in the backpack. Angela stared at it. Why would Tamika have this? They checked security footage from the bar. The footage was grainy, but it was clear enough. There, in the corner of the screen, was a figure. Tamika. But she wasn't alone. A man was with her. A man they didn't recognize. March 3, 2025, 7:30 p.m. The police began to wonder. Had Tamika gone to this bar on her own? Did she meet someone there? Was she trying to escape? They needed to find that man. He was the key. March 3, 2025, 10:14 p.m. The phone records confirmed what they feared. The man in the footage had tried to call Tamika's phone after she disappeared. The call had gone straight to voicemail, but they were able to trace the number. It was a different burner phone. One registered under a different name, the same name as the man in the footage. Everything pointed to him. But just as they were closing in, another call came through. This one wasn't from the man they were tracking. It was from an unknown number. The voicemail left? A single, chilling message. "You're looking in the wrong place. Who is the man in the footage? Where did he take Tamika? And who is playing this game?" The clock ticks. Days turn into weeks. And still, there's no sign of Tamika. But then, a single call would change everything. It's been 44 days. 44 days of agonizing silence. Tamika Jordan had disappeared without a trace. And her family? They were desperate for answers. But the system? It had abandoned them. Angela, Tamika's mother, had called the police every single day since her daughter's disappearance. Each time, she was met with the same indifferent responses. Maybe she left on her own, they would say. She's an adult. She could be on a trip, or maybe, she's just gone somewhere to clear her head. But Angela knew. She knew her daughter wouldn't just leave. Tamika was not the type. Angela and her family felt the weight of the silence pressing in. The posters they put up around the neighborhood, they kept getting torn down. They were devastated, but not broken. They couldn't afford to be. They called the media. But the response was cold. Tamika's face didn't fit the narrative they wanted to tell. No coverage. Not even a mention on the local news. Then, they started asking why. Angela had one burning question. Why had Tamika's case been brushed aside? The answer was all too clear. Tamika didn't fit their mold. A black woman in her 20s? Gone. No one cared. But Tamika's family refused to give up. They turned to social media. #WhereIsTamika? The hashtag exploded across the internet. Blacklead pages took charge, amplifying her story. They weren't going to wait for the media to step in. They were making their own noise. Tamika's story was everywhere now. A flood of people shared her face, her story, her hopes for the future. People started digging into her life, piecing together what had happened. Angela watched the hashtag climb higher and higher, praying that this time, the world would hear them. Then, on day 44, there was a break. A small, seemingly insignificant detail, buried beneath a routine. It came in the form of a call from a construction worker. The worker, a man in his 50s, had been on a site about 2 miles away from Tamika's apartment. The site was in a less traveled area, behind an old strip mall. Not exactly the kind of place someone would end up. But when the wind shifted, he noticed something. A strange, sour smell. At first, he thought it was just the usual garbage. Construction sites always had their share of unpleasant odors. But the smell, it didn't fit. It was different. Sharp. Pungent. It wasn't until the next morning that he realized what it could be. March 17, 2025, 10 a.m. The construction worker called the police. He led them to the site. The smell, now unmistakable, led them to an old, rusted storage container. The container, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the site, had clearly been there for some time. But what was inside was far worse than anyone could have imagined. When the police opened the door, they found nothing. Nothing but a long, empty shadow. No bodies. No blood. But they did find something. A piece of fabric, frayed and torn. A shirt. It was Tamika's. The moment they identified it, their hearts sank. This wasn't just a scent of decay. This was something far more sinister. The police immediately sealed off the area, launching a full investigation. Angela was contacted, and she raced to the site, unable to believe what they were telling her. Her hands shook as she saw the shirt. Her daughter's shirt. What had happened to Tamika? Angela was shaking with anger and grief. She could feel her heart pounding, as if each beat was a countdown to something she didn't want to face. The police began questioning the construction workers. One man, younger than the others, seemed nervous. He kept looking over his shoulder, glancing at the ground as if something was weighing on him. Angela noticed. There was something off about him. But they couldn't figure out what. The investigation continued. They combed through the area. They checked nearby surveillance cameras. They interviewed people who lived and worked in the area. Then, one officer found something that made the blood in their veins run cold. In the footage from a nearby gas station, there was a man who matched the description of the person seen in the bar with Tamika. It was the same figure, standing next to her, talking to her. They were laughing. And they were leaving the bar together. But this man was not someone they'd found in their original search. March 17, 2025, 1:45 p.m. They traced the man's vehicle. It was a van, unmarked, dark. The kind of vehicle that blended into the background. The police tracked it to an industrial area several miles away. But when they arrived, the place was deserted. No signs of the man. No signs of Tamika. Just an eerie emptiness. The area was littered with old warehouses, most of them abandoned. But one door stood ajar. It led to a dark, concrete stairwell that seemed to stretch endlessly downward. Was this where Tamika had been taken? Had the man led her here? The police hesitated. But they couldn't ignore the feeling gnawing at them. They descended the stairs. The air grew thick with the smell of mildew and old dust. And there, in the darkest corner, they found something chilling. A bloody shoe. It was a woman's shoe. And it was Tamika's size. March 17, 2025, 3:12 p.m. Angela stood outside, her breath shallow. She hadn't been allowed inside the warehouse. The police said it wasn't safe. She wanted answers. She needed answers. Her daughter was out there, and she wasn't going to stop until she found her. The police worked quickly, cataloging everything they found. Then, they discovered something even more unsettling. A series of footprints. But these weren't normal. The prints were leading in a strange direction, toward a hidden door behind the stairs. The door had been there all along. And it led into a secret room. Inside the room was a message. The words were scrawled in what looked like red paint. "She's mine now." Angela felt the world start to tilt. She didn't understand. Why? Who had done this? Who was behind this? And why had Tamika been taken? What had they done to her? March 17, 2025, 5:02 p.m. The police finally found a name. A name that sent shockwaves through the entire investigation. They traced it back to Deshawn Reed, Tamika's neighbor. The man who'd been watching her. The man who wouldn't leave her alone. But how was he connected to the warehouse? What had he been hiding all along? And then, just as they were about to close in on him, Deshawn vanished. What happened to Deshawn? What dark secrets was he hiding? The clock is ticking. Tamika's life is on the line. And the truth is closer than ever. It had been almost 2 months since Tamika Jordan vanished. And for 44 days, her family had prayed, hoped, and fought for justice, but the silence around her case was suffocating. Then, the discovery of Tamika's shirt at a construction site, a scent no one could ignore, had sparked a new wave of investigation. But they were still left with questions. So many questions. Then came the breakthrough. March 30, 2025, 9:30 a.m. The call came in just before breakfast. A construction worker, again. This time, though, it wasn't about an odor or a sighting. It was something far more damning. He was working on an old building foundation in the industrial district, just a few miles from where Tamika's body was suspected to be. The pit was deep, and the building had been abandoned for years. No one had any idea it was being renovated, until now. He discovered something buried under freshly poured concrete. A barrel. The kind you might see in a factory. A steel barrel, sealed shut. He called the police. Detective Harris and his team arrived at the site within minutes. They were still reeling from the lead they had on Deshawn Reed, Tamika's obsessive neighbor, but this discovery changed everything. March 30, 2025, 11 a.m. The team worked frantically, digging into the foundation. Every minute felt like a race against time. The sun was high, and the air was thick with dust. Harris felt the weight of every passing second pressing down on him. They cracked open the barrel. Inside was Tamika Jordan. Her lifeless body was wrapped tightly in plastic. Her skin, pale and bruised, was a testament to the violence she'd endured. There were cuts. There were deep, angry bruises. Her mouth had been sealed shut, no doubt to silence her. But what struck Detective Harris the most? Beside her, there was something familiar. Something chilling. A knife. The same type Tamika had kept under her pillow for protection. The same knife her sister had mentioned when describing how Tamika had become paranoid in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. March 30, 2025, 12:15 p.m. Angela Jordan, Tamika's mother, was notified within hours of the discovery. Her hands trembled as she clutched the phone. The words seemed to echo in her ears, "We found her. We found Tamika." Her heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, she felt a sense of relief, until she heard the details. The bruising. The silence. The knife. It was everything Angela feared. Her daughter wasn't just missing. She'd been murdered. The police rushed to identify who was behind this brutal act. They had already suspected Deshawn Reed, but now, with the body found under concrete and the unmistakable evidence pointing toward him, they couldn't afford to wait any longer. Surveillance footage from the area around the construction site finally confirmed it. Deshawn had been in the vicinity the day before Tamika's body was discovered. The footage also showed him driving a black van, the same van spotted near Tamika's apartment the night she disappeared. March 30, 2025, 3 p.m. Deshawn Reed's home was raided by the police. But they found nothing. He was gone. Vanished. This was the moment. The moment everything changed. Deshawn had been a suspect, but now, with the murder so clearly linked to him, he was the prime suspect. The barrel. The knife. The surveillance. It all pointed to him. But Deshawn wasn't just hiding. He'd planned this. He'd covered his tracks well. March 30, 2025, 7 p.m. Detective Harris met with his team. The atmosphere in the room was heavy. They had found Tamika, but there was still something missing. The answers were just out of reach. Why had Deshawn done this? What had pushed him to commit such a horrific crime? And where was he now? They dug into his background, looking for any clues. What they found shocked them. Deshawn had been living a double life. March 30, 2025, 9 p.m. The search for Deshawn led the police down a dark path. They discovered a series of fake construction companies he had been involved with. One of these companies, Reed and Sons Construction, had been used to cover up the renovation of the abandoned building where Tamika's body had been hidden. It wasn't just a random place. It was carefully chosen. He had planned this. Deshawn had arranged for the building to be renovated, knowing the pit would be dug. Knowing that the barrel could be buried and hidden under concrete. March 30, 2025, 10:30 p.m. The investigation took a darker turn when Detective Harris uncovered something more disturbing. Deshaun had been obsessed with Tamika for months. At first, it was subtle. He'd show up where she was, at the gym, the laundry room, the grocery store. She'd politely brush him off. She wasn't interested. But Deshaun didn't take no for an answer. Then, the note started. The threats. Tamika had told her family that if anything happened to her, it would be him. But no one had taken it seriously. March 31, 2025, 12 a.m. It was in the early hours of the morning when Harris received the call that would change everything. Deshaun had been found. But it wasn't the news they were hoping for. Deshaun's van was located, abandoned in a parking lot on the outskirts of town. It was unlocked, and the keys were still inside. The police began searching the area. And there, in the distance, near a set of train tracks, they found something chilling. A trail of blood. It led to a nearby wooded area. The officers moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Every rustle of leaves felt like it could be the end of their search. And then, they found him. Deshaun Reed was kneeling at the edge of a shallow grave. He was holding something in his hands. Something metallic. A gun. As the police closed in, Deshaun looked up. His eyes were empty. Hollow. He didn't speak. And then, he turned the gun on himself. The case that had begun with a missing woman had now reached its tragic conclusion. Deshaun Reed was dead. And Tamika's family was left to mourn. But something didn't sit right with Detective Harris. He had found Deshaun, but what was the real motive? Why had Deshaun really done it? The authorities began digging into Deshaun's past, looking for clues. What they uncovered, however, would send shockwaves through the entire investigation. Deshaun's family had connections. Dangerous ones. As Harris stared at the evidence laid out before him, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if Deshaun wasn't working alone? The truth is far darker than anyone could have imagined. The real story is only just beginning. The courtroom was silent. The kind of silence that felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Every eye was on Deshaun Reed, sitting in that chair, his face unreadable as the trial unfolded. The story everyone thought they knew, the quiet, hard-working nursing student from Atlanta who had been brutally murdered by her obsessed neighbor, was now in the hands of lawyers, spinning in ways no one could have predicted. Trial Day 1. Deshaun's defense was simple, yet chilling. It was an accident, his lawyer claimed. A moment of passion. A misunderstanding. The courtroom was stunned. The nerve of it. The goal of the defense team to paint Tamika Jordan as someone who had somehow caused her own death. They painted her as unstable, as emotional, as dramatic, a woman who couldn't handle the pressure of a simple confrontation with Deshaun. The defense suggested that her repeated rejections of him had somehow escalated, triggering a violent outburst. That it wasn't murder. It was a freak accident. But Tamika didn't get to tell her side of the story. Not anymore. Day 2 of the trial. The prosecution wasn't backing down, though. They had their work cut out for them, fighting not just for justice for Tamika, but for her voice. When the prosecutors stood to present evidence, they faced a wall of pushback. It wasn't just about proving the violence Deshaun inflicted on Tamika. It was about something much deeper. Something far darker. They had to fight just to admit Tamika's past police reports into evidence. Reports where she'd pleaded for help, where she had detailed her terrifying encounters with Deshaun. It was clear to anyone paying attention, this was no accident. Day 3 of the trial. As the days dragged on, the defense tried to undermine Tamika's character. They brought up her past. They twisted her words. They tried to make her look like a troublemaker, someone whose own actions had invited violence. But Tamika's family wasn't letting them get away with it. Her mother, Angela Jordan, took the stand. The moment Angela spoke, the courtroom felt like it had stopped. With quiet strength, she said, she begged for help. And they let her die. Her voice cracked, but there was no doubt in her words. No hesitation. She wasn't just talking about the police who had brushed off Tamika's repeated calls for help. She wasn't just talking about the building management who had refused to acknowledge Tamika's fears. She was talking about the system that had failed her daughter. And now, Deshaun's lawyer was trying to paint her as unstable. Day 4 of the trial. Tamika's friends and family took the stand next. Each one spoke of her caring nature, how she had always helped others despite the struggles she faced in her own life. They spoke of the constant pressure Tamika had been under. The fear. The anxiety that she carried every day as Deshaun's presence grew more threatening. Her friends testified about the late-night phone calls where she was scared. How she had gone from strong and confident to terrified. They all remembered the warning she'd given to her sister. If anything happens to me, she had said, it's him. But even with all this, Deshawn's defense didn't back down. They stuck to their story, that it had been an accident. That Tamika had somehow escalated the situation. That she was the one who had caused her own demise. The longer the trial went on, the more the public felt the sting of injustice. Trial day 5. And then came the twist. The prosecution uncovered something that no one had expected. Deshawn hadn't been just some random neighbor, he had been a dangerous predator. And what the defense hadn't anticipated was the damning evidence they would uncover from his past. He had been involved in multiple incidents of harassment, both before and after his interactions with Tamika. But this wasn't just about Tamika anymore. This was about a pattern of behavior, a pattern of violence and manipulation. Day 6 of the trial. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the prosecution presented their new findings. Deshawn had been in contact with other women, women who reported similar behaviors. Women who had been harassed, stalked, and threatened. And in each case, Deshawn had played the same game. He'd been charming at first. Then, when the women rejected him, he escalated. The same pattern had played out with Tamika. She had been his latest victim, the latest woman to brush him off and suffer the consequences. Day 7. But it didn't stop there. The more they dug into Deshawn's past, the more horrifying truths came to light. The prosecutor announced the discovery of a previous restraining order against Deshawn from a woman he'd dated. A woman who had feared for her life. And then, the court was shown a hidden recording, a recording that sent shockwaves through the room. The recording was from a private investigator hired by one of Deshawn's earlier victims. In it, Deshawn was heard speaking to himself, revealing his true nature. The voice was quiet, almost detached, as if he was speaking to no one in particular. I can't let them reject me. I won't let them walk away. I'll make them regret it. They'll regret not loving me. The room was stunned into silence. Deshawn had admitted it. Not in the courtroom. But in a private conversation, captured on tape. Trial day 8. The final day of the trial. It was time for closing arguments. Tamika's family was on edge, and for the first time, the jury was beginning to show signs of doubt about Deshawn's defense. The prosecution was relentless. They reminded the jury of the brutality of Tamika's death, the overwhelming evidence of Deshawn's obsession, and the cold, calculated way he had ended her life. But Deshawn's defense attorney had one final trick up his sleeve. He didn't claim innocence. Instead, he dropped a bombshell. What if I told you that Tamika Jordan's death wasn't just an accident? The defense lawyer asked. The jury was silent. He leaned forward. What if I told you that someone else was involved in this crime? Someone close to her. Someone who has been hiding in plain sight all along? The words hung in the air, thick with suspicion. The twist was real. Deshawn Reed wasn't working alone. And just as the prosecution tried to refute this new claim, the lights flickered in the courtroom. The truth is far from over, the defense lawyer said, as the courtroom descended into chaos. Deshawn was not alone. And the jury? They had no idea who else was involved. Tamika said no. That should have been the end of it. But for too many black women, saying no comes with a price. Fear, violence, death. And worst of all, when they ask for help, no one listens. The world only tunes in when it's too late, when she's cold, missing, or buried in concrete. Tamika didn't have to die. But this system failed her like it fails so many others. Say her name. Say it loud. Because next time, it could be your sister, your daughter, your friend. And all she said was no. Statistics. Black women make up approximately 13% of the female population in the United States, yet they represent about 35% of all missing person cases. Studies show that black women are disproportionately affected by missing persons cases, but they are often ignored or downplayed in media coverage and law enforcement responses. According to a 2020 report, black women are 2.5 times more likely to experience intimate partner violence than white women, yet their cases receive less attention or urgency. Quote from Tamika's journal, "I just want to live a life that's quiet and free." Tamika Jordan. Call to action, protect black women. Believe black women. Listen when they say no. Every voice matters. Every life is important. We can no longer turn a blind eye. It's time to make their stories heard. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story shocked you, like and subscribe to True Crime Series for more cases that expose the darkest corners of human nature.